Hello and welcome to the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I'm a playwright, screenwriter, and podcaster from South Wales. And seeing as March is Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, to mark it, I've decided to interview interesting people who have cerebral palsy from Wales and beyond every day in March. If you like this episode, please stay tuned for more throughout the month and like and share. Now enjoy this episode of the Palsy Podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I'm recording these interview podcasts throughout March to raise awareness of cerebral palsy, and I'm also getting the opportunity to talk to some really interesting people, such as today's guest, Sofia Brizio. Hi Sophia, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me. This is great.
Thank you for coming on. Um, I guess I'm gonna open with the question I normally start with. Um, was what was it like growing up with cerebral palsy, and was there a moment where you first felt different to your peers?
Yeah, so for context, I grew up in Italy, northern Italy, small town near Milan, and then I moved to the UK when I was 18. And I've now been living in Wales for about 10 years. So I grew up in Italy, and it's kind of important to keep in mind that sort of cultural context.
Of course.
So I feel like I was very lucky in terms of the people that I found in school and the way that my family supported me. However, there were a few instances where I did feel different. I think the first memory that I have of feeling different is when I think I was about 5 years old and my mum was trying to sign me up for swimming lessons at my local pool. And she'd picked me up from school and we kind of went to the pool. She left me in the car to go to speak to reception about, getting me signed up for these lessons. Um,
Mm.
and from the car, I heard the reception lady say, "We don't take disabled children here. We wouldn't know what to do with them." Um, and I remember that I was crying in my mum's car because I didn't want to go swimming. I hated swimming, and so I was really crying because I wanted to go back home, and I was hoping that my mum would give up and just take me home. And then I heard that sentence from the receptionist, and I just stopped in my tracks and I started crying again, but this time because I wanted to actually
Mm.
swim, and that kind of decision had been taken away from me. And that's the first thing that I remember feeling like, okay, this world was not made for me in some way.
That's like that sounds like it was a horrible experience, but I think a lot of people have that experience of discrimination, and it's really important, I think, to point it out. What was school like for you? Did you presumably you went to a mainstream school, but was that kind of a battle for your
Yeah, so it's
nerves?
again going back to the Italian cultural context. So
Of
we don't
course.
have the same separation that you have in the UK between like sort of special educational needs schools and mainstream schools. Typically, disabled people who are able to learn in the conventional way get put in like a regular school, and they get assigned one or two special educational needs teachers who kind of sit beside them during lessons, help them with activities. Um, I had two teachers who helped me with, taking notes, going to the toilet up until the age of like, I don't know, elementary school when I was not fully able to kind of go to the toilet by myself. Um, but I think I would say I was really lucky in that most of the time I had really, really good teachers. A lot of them I'm still in touch with today. And I think they just really believed in me and in my capabilities. Of course, I had horrible experiences sometimes and I felt excluded. I think also friends-wise, I was quite lucky in that I found the right people straight away. And again, they've become lifelong friends and I'm still friends with most of them. Um,
I
but
think it's really important to have a good friends who've like got your back, who like
Absolutely. So I think that would be the thing that I enjoyed. But then on the flip side, I also, especially in elementary school and middle school, I experienced a lot of bullying um, for the way that I walked, mainly because I walk with a walker. And so that was kind of really difficult, especially when I was in primary school, because I really felt like I was different because I had a different
mm,
desk, I had a different chair from my peers because I had, back problems and I needed to keep my posture a certain way. And that obviously sticks out when you're like 6, 7, whatever. Um, and yeah, so I got bullied quite a lot, and I still remember a lot of those episodes, and it's not a nice memory. But I do try to focus on the fact that I did find my friends, and that most of them are
mm.
still in my life, and that is absolutely lovely.
It's brilliant when you find that supportive network of people that you can rely on, you can trust. I'm sorry that you experienced bullying, but I think it's a similar story for quite a lot of us. Everyone, I think, who's been on the podcast so far, including myself, has experienced some sort of bullying in childhood. And I think
Absolutely.
hopefully more awareness of disability is lessening that now. But it's sad really that so many of us have had to experience that. But
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
going to swimming, you've touched on it briefly, but how did you start swimming and where did that interest you or anything?
Yeah, so I think I started, really early on because one of the first things that doctors told my mum was that swimming was going to be really good for my spasticity because I have spastic diplegia. So obviously spasticity is a big component of my form of CP. So they said, it's going to be good for her to swim, water relaxes muscles, whatever. Try to do that. And so my mum, being a really good mum, tried to get me to a pool any chance she got. And so I started swimming when I was about 2, I would say,
Wow.
the first experiences. And then I sort of really hated it. Like really, really hated it. I used to cry and scream every time my mum tried to take me to a pool. Um, but then she didn't give up on me until when I was about 9 years old, I would say, I found my local para swimming team that
Mm,
was kind of what changed the game for me. Because for the first time in my life, I was among other disabled people. And this is the thing as well, like growing up, I was always the only disabled person in the room. And suddenly I was in a team where we were sort of all in the same boat. We all had different disabilities, but it was the first time in my life where I said, okay, I'm home here. I feel included here. I'm not out of place. And that was life changing. And it's kind of what kick-started then my para swimming career, if we can call it that.
it's always an amazing feeling to be in a community of people who get it, who understand, who kind of have some level of understanding of what you go through as a disabled person. So yeah, the way you're embraced by that idea of community, it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. It really changed. I think it changed the way that I was seeing myself. I think the reason I didn't enjoy swimming before that was because I could feel that I was different from other children. I would always get put in a separate lane, doing different things that maybe, I couldn't do the same things that the other children were doing. But then the other children were like staring at me because I had a walker, I was different, whatever.
Mm.
And when I joined my local para swimming team, there was none of that because we all had different mobility aids. We all had wheelchairs, walkers, or, how bodies work differently. And there was a lot of beauty in that.
And when did you start swimming competitively?
So I my first um so I started with regionals around 2008. And then I did my first nationals in 2010.
Mm.
Um and I never stopped since then.
And like, what is your stroke? What is your distance?
Um, so now I don't train as much anymore, so I don't know if I still have like my stroke. But my stroke used to be breaststroke, specifically 100 breaststroke. Then I also won some medals in 50 backstroke, 50 freestyle, 100 freestyle. Um, and that's pretty much it. I'm not a distance swimmer yet. Although I do think before I finish my career, I do want to do like some kind of open water race or distance race just to, experiment with different things because it's been 20 years now and I feel like I need to change things up.
Like, what are the difficulties with that? Because I know because of my CP endurance stuff, using a lot of energy. People with CP
Yeah.
use three times as much energy as people who
Yeah.
don't have CP. So
That is
how?
definitely that's definitely a big thing. I think for me it's more that because I train, I'm used to the effort and I know how to, I've had to learn how to regulate myself. Um, and sometimes I still get it wrong, but most of the time through training, I was able to kind of become really good at assessing how much strength I can use and over like what kind of period of time. I think for me, the way that tiredness affects me is more um, I would say mental rather than physical. So I get easily overwhelmed when I have a lot of things to do, and with the swimming, it's been really difficult to keep up the routine because it means that I have really, really long days because I have to fit my
Mm,
training in like alongside my working life. And so keeping up with the mental aspect of that, or even just the mental aspect of like having to get through a whole set on my own because I train on my own in Cardiff
right.
as my team is in Italy, with the training I do it in Cardiff and then I go back to Italy to compete. So it takes a lot of mental
Mm,
strength. It's never been that much of a physical thing for me because I think the physical strength and resistance you can train and you can become good at it. But the mental fatigue is
mm.
still what gets me. Like I get to some days where I can't even string a sentence together from how tired I am.
I mean, do you have a coach with you, or are you entirely like on your own? Does
So
that take?
I have my coach in Italy. So the way that this works is that she sends me my sets on WhatsApp, and
Mm,
then I learned these sets by heart essentially, and I dive in and I just do the set, and and then I kind of feedback to her to say. Today went well, today didn't go well, today the set was too hard, whatever. I do, the same set that my team does in Italy. So the only difference is that in my case, she has to take a picture of the set and send it to me
mm,
instead of, reading it out to me. Um, so I think we've made it work most of the time. Of course, it's really, really hard for me, as I said, mentally having to like force yourself to go into the water
mm.
at 6 a.m.,
I couldn't do that.
on
I
your own
could
with
not.
no coach. It's like, sometimes it's just like my alarm goes off and I'm just like, oh, I can't be bothered today. I'm just gonna stay in bed. I have those moments. It's not like I don't want it to come across as like, oh, I'm just a superhuman that gets up at 4 a.m. every day. Like that's the goal.
But
But
it's
as you
difficult,
said,
right?
because of how much energy CP takes,
Mm.
it's just not possible sometimes. And I do have pain flare-ups and things that get in the way. So yeah, it's all about balance, but I haven't quite struck the balance yet, I feel.
Have you connected with any other para swimmers in Cardiff?
Not really, sadly, because yeah, I don't think I've ever really tried that hard because I knew I had my team in Italy. But it would be nice to do that someday. Um, and yeah, even if I stop swimming competitively, it would be nice to find someone to, go for a swim with once in a while.
I want to talk next about the power of the current, which is a documentary about you and competitive swimming. How did that come about? So what was the process of that?
Yeah, so Power of the Current is an interesting project. I would never thought that someone would make a documentary about me. Um, that someone is Alexia Barrett. She's a filmmaker, um, and we met through mutual friends because we were basically in the same school at uni, so the School of Journalism at Cardiff University. But she's a couple of years younger than me, so we didn't really cross paths during our undergraduates. But we had mutual friends. So at one of these, like we used to basically hang around the same circles. We never met each other in person, but we knew about each other.
Yeah,
And then she's also a writer, and she basically self-published a book during the pandemic, but at the time when she self-published it, she didn't really have the money for an editor. And then when was this now? 2023, she decided that she wanted to rework on the book, get it edited professionally. And before I started my current job and my current studies, I used to work as a book editor. And so Alexia met up with some of my friends and told them this, and they were like, ask Sofia because she's an editor. So she messaged me saying, "Do you want to edit my book?" And I was like, "We can talk about it. Let's meet. Let's discuss this over coffee." So we did, and that was the first time that we met in person. It was summer 2023, and basically we kind of talked about the book. We agreed on me potentially editing it. But I said, look, I'm going to be away for a month now because I've
mm,
got the nationals with the swimming in Italy. And she was like, what is this? Tell me about it. And so I kind of started telling her about how I started swimming. And she was like, oh, I'm also a filmmaker. I want to make my first documentary. Uh, can you be the subject of my documentary? And I was like, well, if you're asking so nicely, I will. And it was insane because I didn't even think it was going to happen, or rather, I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly. And so we kind of left it at that. And then 2 weeks later, she emailed me the full structure of the documentary. I was like, okay, this
wow.
was quick. This is really happening. So yeah, that's how it came about. And it's been amazing, honestly. I feel so lucky.
How much, like, say, did you have creatively in what the film was going to look like? How much agency did you have over what story was told, and how did you work together on that?
I think it was very important for us to set boundaries because the thing about Alexia and I is that we kind of became friends straight away as soon as we started talking. And I think sometimes it's really difficult to work with friends because you have different visions and you don't want that
Mm,
to get in the way of your friendship. And so I feel like we were really good at setting boundaries from the beginning, kind of like saying, I talked to Alexia about my life experience, and I was very clear about the fact that I wanted that to be treated with respect and not sort of dramatized in any way
yeah.
or sensationalized in any way. And she was very respectful of that. And I feel like she understood fully and she understands me fully. And that was really nice. And in return, because I really trusted her, what we said was like, I'm not gonna have any like I'm gonna know roughly what is gonna go in the documentary, but I'm not gonna have a say in the final edit.
Hmm.
I'm gonna let the rest of the team and Alexia, because she's the director, have like agency creatively. And then if there's something that I really do not want there, I'm gonna say
Mm.
obviously, but I think I didn't see the full documentary until the final cut, and I think I was really happy with with
I
what
think
everyone did.
you should both be incredibly proud of the film that was made because it's a really powerful piece and a really, really well made piece. But
Thank you so much. And I think also news of today, actually, if
oh,
anyone wants to watch the documentary. So the Breeze Film Festival in London are going to screen it for International Women's Day. So 8th of March online. So that it's there. It can be watched.
Sophia, will you send me a link to that at the
I
end and
will.
I'll
Yes,
add it to the
definitely.
description of this? And yeah, please, if you get a spare hour, watch the documentary. And in it, like you talk about how do we just like accessibility and disability awareness perhaps in Italy and in Wales. What have you found to be the similarities and differences?
Yeah, so I think a key point of the documentary is that I moved to Wales because it was more accessible to me than Italy was. Um, I got to 18 and I realized that Italy wasn't giving me the same opportunities as my peers, and that I wanted something different. And because I'd been on holiday in the UK before, I knew that it was a country that I found, overall accessible, or at least more accessible than Italy. And I felt like in the UK I could have that little bit of independence that allowed me to feel like a human being.
Yeah, just
Uh,
basic human dignity.
yeah, just like basic, like being able to get out of the house and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I think the main difference for me was this. In the UK, as much as I think it's got worse since the pandemic, buildings are, public buildings mostly are accessible to people with mobility aids and people with disabilities. Um, Whereas in Italy, there's not even that, because especially where I live, there are a lot of like historical buildings that can't be adapted, or at least they should be. But what they use as an excuse is like, oh, this is a historical building, it can't be adapted. Whenever you're going to have to deal with the stairs. Whereas here there's a lot more ease in trying to adapt things, or um,
Yeah.
at least like caring about basic accessibility. So that was the main reason. And then I did essentially all my degrees in Wales, and I ended up staying because I liked it, and because I then, after my degrees, I got a job here, and then I started my PhD. So I I kind of
Brilliant.
stayed. Yeah.
And we should say the Paralympics are going to be in Italy and Milan Cortina next month.
Oh yeah.
Do you,
I haven't like I've not followed the conversation particularly, especially because I very disappointingly I feel like there's been a lot of talk about the actual like Winter Olympics, and then now that they're kind of over and it comes to the Paralympics, no one's talking about anything. And it was kind of
completely agree.
expected because, it the I feel like in Italy, the Paralympics often get even less attention than they do in the UK. Um, I personally feel like access to Paralympics coverage, at least for me, has been a lot easier from the UK than from Italy. So that is a little bit disappointing, but I will be curious to hear, especially experiences of accessibility
Mm.
from athletes. I would hope that being that is an international event and it's as big as the Paralympics are, people will take care and uh, actually think about access.
Absolutely, and it's an opportunity for Italy to show, for the world to see some superb disabled athletes. So hopefully access will be at the forefront of that. Um, can you talk a little bit about your PhD and what you're kind of generally looking at and what you're looking into and yeah.
Yeah. So good question. I answer this question every day. Um, I still don't know how to answer it properly, so this is a good exercise. So my PhD is in media diversity and it's funded by the Sir Lenny Henry Centre for Media Diversity at Birmingham City University. So I'm looking into the representation of disability in online news specifically. So I'm looking at coverage of disability on publications such as like the Guardian Online, the Mail Online, the Mirror, the Sun, the BBC, um, and yeah, I think it's for me it was important to reflect on the online dynamics around disability and how the kind of politics of clickbait and
Mm.
how all of that impacts on how disability is represented compared to other forms of media. Um, I wouldn't say I have any particular findings yet, but because I'm kind of early on in the process of the PhD, I am noticing some things, such as the fact that some disabilities get to be represented more than others. So, for example, it seems to me, I don't have official data yet, as I said, but it seems to me that physical disabilities are represented more often than other types of disabilities, and that people with intellectual disabilities and learning disabilities are not interviewed as frequently and not used as sources as frequently as other
Mm.
types of disabilities. So it's interesting, and I might, actually find more and be able to provide more precise data in a year or two. But yeah, so far this is what I'm observing.
Do you think there are certain stereotypes that the media still portrays disabled people as?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially around sports, since we were talking about the Paralympics, there's this expectation that disabled people have to be inspirational, have to do something amazing with their lives. And one of the reasons why it was important to make part of the current for me was also to show that there are athletes that are not Paralympians, but whose
Mm.
careers and whose lives still have equal value. And it happened to me a few times when like swimming in public swimming pools and stuff, like people see me swim and ask, "Oh, are you going to the Paralympics? Are you going to be a Paralympian?" And it's like, no, I don't necessarily, I don't want to take away from what Paralympians do because it's
Mm.
amazing and they are amazing and you know, um, but I feel like in terms of disability representation, what we're missing is the middle ground. Um, like it for the media at the moment, you're either a tragedy or a superhero, and I think what we're missing is the middle ground. We're missing the idea that disabled people can have normal lives and that
Yeah,
we can be mediocre at things.
exactly. And you just talking about sport, like enjoying sport for the enjoyment of it rather than have to
Yeah,
be an Olympic
absolutely.
champion or prove anything to anyone, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is the thing. It's like because I feel like when you grew up only seeing Paralympians as amazing as they are, then you feel like you have to be that. You have to like
Yeah.
the aspiration in your life has to be that, and that if you're anything less than that, then you're nothing. And is not true. And I think it really is really mind blowing when you're growing up with only examples like that, because then you work extra hard already knowing that you're going to be one step behind everyone else because of your disability. And then you think, oh, but I have to be like superhuman to get to the
Mm.
level of these other people, otherwise I'm not worth anything. And I think, yeah, we need alternative representations to try and change this.
And I think that can have a really negative effect on people's mental health as well. This idea that we've got to work so hard to be good enough in terms of what society sees us as, and this idea that maybe it's okay to have an off day. It's okay not to be on top form all the time because no one is on top form all the time. But I
Y-
personally can be really hard on myself if I have a day where I'm not functioning very well. And
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I think it's massive work on yourself. Um, I think it's again conditioning, uh, kind of coming from how other people see you as well.
mm,
Because like even when I was growing up, I was always seen as like the resilient one, the person who was like pushing through pain and all of that, and that kind of stays with you. And as much as I'm trying to work on it now and like catch myself when I have these moments of like, oh, I can do everything. I can like write, have a PhD
it's
thesis in
hard
48
though.
hours. And
It's
it
hard
is
though.
really hard. And I know I am really hard on myself, and it even in my work, I can see it like sort of playing every day, of me saying, oh, I'll do like 1,000 things today, and then I feel horrible because it gets to half the day and I've done nothing, but actually that nothing was probably still a lot.
Mm. And taking time to rest. I'm trying to learn at the moment to take time to rest and switch off to preserve myself for the next day. I'm not doing that enough, but I think it's something that I've started to learn as I've got into my late
Yeah.
20s and now early 30s.
Absolutely. I think for me also, ironically, the fact that I'm waking up really early in the morning, so like 4 and 5 a.m. for
Mm.
swimming, forces me to rest because it means that I fall asleep at like 8:30 in the evening, whether I want it or not.
Um,
So I guess that has been a good thing.
I suppose. I wanted to talk about your writing as well because you've been published in publications such as Beyond
Yeah.
Hwnt, which is an anthology composed by our friends Bethany Hadley and Megan Angard Hunter, which was published last year. Yes, last year.
Yes, last year.
So
I
how
believe
did
it's recently turned 1 year old, I think.
blown
Um,
by? Like, so how did that come about?
Um, it was again one of those coincidences that, oh God, it was my first ever publication as a writer because I used to work as a journalist, so I'd had my articles published and whatever, but I feel like being published in print as a writer feels really different.
Mm,
And so it was my first short story ever published, and it just came out of nowhere, really. I saw the call on Lucid Dreaming's website for kind of contributions from disabled writers. And at first I ignored it, and then my friend Max sent it to me saying, I know you have writing that is good, you should submit. I was like, I don't know. I kind of played with it for a really long time, and then I had this short story that I'd been working on for a number of years, and I kind of couldn't decide on it. And then I said, okay, like I'm gonna try it, and then if it doesn't work, the worst thing that can happen is I get rejected. And it was my first submission. I didn't know what I was doing. I got the email addresses wrong the first time. It's a whole thing. but then it got accepted, and it was like my one of the happiest moments of my life, and I think it's still one of my proudest achievements as a writer. Um, and
What
I
is it?
think
Sorry, go on.
yeah, it was just really nice for me to have a space to write about my disability in a way that I'd never done before. And yeah, it was just really nice.
Can you talk little bit about what the piece is about?
Yeah, so the piece is a kind of, I guess, autofiction story. Um, it's based on a dream that I used to have when I was a kid. It was a recurrent dream. So it was about me taking a weird pill that made me walk on my own without mobility aids, and basically it made me non-disabled for kind of a, a set amount of time. And when that time ran out, I would go back to being my disabled self. And it sort of became a story about acceptance, because when I used to have this dream as a kid, I would wake up from it and think, thank God I'm disabled again. Because
Wow.
people think it's kind of a play on the fact that people think that the thing that you have to aspire to is a non-disabled body, and that if you have the chance of becoming non-disabled, you must be happy about it. Which, I'm not gonna lie, it would make some things a lot easier. But
Oh yeah.
also because I was born with CP and I don't know what having a non-disabled body feels like, it's kind of scary.
Because
Um,
we've got nothing to compare it to.
yeah,
We don't
exactly.
know what it's like not to be disabled.
Exactly. And I'm just like, what if it's horrible? What if I hate
Yeah.
it? I don't hate my body. I don't hate my life. Why would I want to
Uh,
change it? And so it's kind of, it stemmed from that. And yeah, it was really nice to put in writing.
and that's still available. I'll put the link into where people can buy it. I noticed that it was on sale at the National Theatre in London the last time we saw
Oh,
up there. It
nice.
was amazing to see a Welsh disabled-led publication on sale there. And in terms of your creative writing, what are your kind of plans for future?
So I have another little piece coming out. It's just been announced. It's going to be out on the 9th of March, if I remember correctly.
Couple of days
It's a
after this goes out.
it's an essay in an anthology published by Ciaran Books, edited by Taylor Redmonds. And the anthology is called The Waters That Raised Us, and it's about experiences of Welsh writers, or in my case, writers based in Wales, of water in relation to their personal life, but also climate change. So I got to write about swimming for the very first time in my career, which was very exciting, but also very difficult, because I always saw swimming as a source of inspiration for my writing, in terms of like I swim, and while I swim I think about writing and I get new ideas, but I never thought that I would be writing about swimming. And so yeah, it was a really interesting opportunity, and I can't wait to see it published, because there's a lot of interesting authors in that anthology, and it's really exciting.
I'm really looking forward to reading the work of all the other authors. So I'll make you a random question. You said you get ideas when you're swimming. Do you always remember them? Are you always able to remember them and write them down afterwards?
Most of the time, yes, because most of the time I get ideas about something that I'm already working on,
Yeah.
or that has been in my brain for a while, and so I swim, I feel like swimming is a bit like mindfulness, because it's repetitive movement. You're kind of alone with your brain for a bit. You have no music. It's kind of just the sound of the water, sound of your body. And so I think it's very meditative for me. And yeah, I just get to think. over a lot of things, and it's been sometimes if I've been stuck on a piece of writing,
Mm.
I I've just been swimming over it, and like by the time I was done swimming, I was like, okay, this isn't as difficult as I thought. This can be done. And yeah, so in that sense, it really helps. And I think I kind of always remember it, but I also have expressed many times that I wish that they would make like waterproof notebooks so that I can take notes poolside, because that'd be really cool.
Would you say swimming is part of your writing process?
Not always. Sometimes I completely like if I'm writing something really that takes a lot of time, I completely
mm,
forget to swim, and that kind of takes priority. I just massively over focus on whatever I'm doing, and I swimming goes kind of on the back burner. But a lot of the time, it is often the case that I kind of burn myself out with the thinking about writing and go like, okay, I'm going a bit insane. I wanna go to the pool to just clear my head, and
mm,
most of the time that helps my process. So I would say it's not part of the process per se, but it is huge help, and
yeah.
sometimes it's been key to me finishing stuff that I was working on.
That's really interesting. It's been really interesting to hear about you, all the exciting things you've been up to and the exciting things that you've got coming up. My last question for you before we end this episode is what is one thing that you wish people knew about cerebral palsy?
Oh, um, it is a really difficult question. I think um, there's two things. One is the thing that you mentioned earlier about, people with CP consuming 3 times as much energy as the average person. I think I've discovered it fairly recently myself, and it's something that I always say to people that I'm either working with or even just friends. Um, because it's kind people joke around about the fact that I'm tired all the time, and yes, it is because I do a lot of things, but also I'm tired even when I do absolutely nothing, because that is
Mm,
the nature of my disability. So I would say that is a thing to keep in mind, which doesn't necessarily mean that we can't do things, just means that uh, you know if you have friends with CP, check in on them often and offer to, go grocery shopping for them or make them food or whatever, because that saves a lot of energy. And yeah, and then I guess, yeah, the other thing is like CP is a huge spectrum, and a lot of people don't realize that. And so they talk about some like CP symptoms or whatever that I personally don't experience. Um, and they're like, oh, my friend with CB has this and that and
mm.
whatever. I was like, I have no idea, because that's not the same thing. Um, so yeah, I just think more awareness of what CP actually is would be really good.
That's kind of it's a lovely link, Sophia, because that's what I'm kind of trying to do with this podcast is raise awareness of CP and interview really interesting people like yourself who experience CP, and you'll be able to hear some more interviews throughout this month with lots of interesting people. But I've really loved catching up with you, Sophia, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been lots of fun, and yes, I'm looking forward to the rest of the podcast and hearing the rest of the guests.
Thank you so much. And yeah, please join us for the next episode, which will be released tomorrow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. But for now, it's bye from me and bye from Sophia. Goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I want to thank my guests for joining me, and I hope that you'll stay tuned for the next episode and more throughout March. Thank you.